Hello, and thank you for visiting the Family Guardian website and watching this video demonstration on how to use the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online. What you have in front of you is the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online. This presentation will take approximately 30 minutes, so please make yourself comfortable. Throughout this demonstration, we will use certain instructional techniques. Let me demonstrate. The mouse cursor, as you can see, has a yellow circle around it, so it's easier to follow. And whenever we click on items, you will hear clicking noise and you will see red circles emanating from the center of the mouse cursor. Let me demonstrate. I'll click on View Instructions and then I will hit the back button. There we go. The Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online is an extremely important area. It is the place that you can and probably will do most of your legal research. It contains sample forms, instructions, cites by topic, authorities, evidence, legal references, federal response letters, state response letters, a history over time of corruption of the government, and testimonials from people who have used this area. So this is a very important area, and it's referenced from other sites as well. It's referenced from SEDM.org, the sister site, for example. We make use of it all the time. In particular, we use the Cites by Topic section all the time because it's got some really useful authorities in that area. The Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online is organized in what we call a frame window, meaning that there are various frames to this presentation. There's a frame on the left here which operates independently from the frame on the right, here, and which also operates independently from the third frame, which is on the title up here on the top. So there are three windows within this frame window that we are using, and the one we use to navigate with primarily is the left frame window here on the top. The title remains static throughout the use of this area, and it never changes, but the left area changes as you click on various items on the top up here. And likewise, sometimes when you click on the areas in the gray here, you will see everything below the gray area change to correlate with the thing you've selected. For instance, right now we're on Forms, and that little down arrow indicates that we're now in the Forms view. So down here you will see forms, all the different types of forms. And so the right window over here, frame window, is reserved for viewing the item that is selected on the left. And that's true of all the various areas that you can go in the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online. Typically, when you open it up the first time, the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online, you will start in the Forms page because that's the one people use the most. Okay, we use the Cites by Topic, but most people use the Forms the most often. So it opens up by default in the Forms section. And if you want to pick a different section, you use this little gray area here up at the top. This is the navigation, basically, within the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions. And so, for instance, since we're in the Forms, as we said, everything down from below the gray area relates to the item that's selected in the gray area. So since we're on the Forms, we see Forms here. And then there are various sections that are partitioned off with little headers that are green and white to make them easy to distinguish. And in some cases they're even enumerated, like these items here. So if we clicked on one of these items, for instance, if we clicked on Family Legal Assistant, which is an off-site link, it says here, then what it does is open a new window and show us that particular page because that was an off-site link. Off-site links always open in a new tab, but links that are internal to the Family Guardian website will not open a new tab or a new window or a new pop-up. Instead, they will populate the area on the right-hand side. So, for instance, if we click on this, we can see the right-hand side change to what it is that we selected, which is Federal Forms, Publications, Notices, and Letters. You can see there it is. So whenever we select a different item over here on the left, then in the section that we're in, which is Forms right now, because the word is red and we have a down arrow, so that's the one that's selected. then whichever one we pick will update what's on the right correspondingly. So in this case, we picked the Congressional Research Service report, and so it populated the right area with the document that we selected. Now, if we wanted to reset the right area, then and go back to the home of this area, then we would simply click on this home again, and it resets the right area and puts us back in the Forms menu. So if we pick on a different area like instructions, we can see the bottom here changed, and now it's pointing to instructions because it's red and there's a down arrow, which means everything down here is instructions. And if we click on one of these, then the item we picked, 0.2, now appears on the right hand side. And if we want to go back to the Forms page, we can click here. If we want to go back to the instructions, we can click again, and we see instructions. And if we want to reset the right hand side as well, we click on this home, and it resets the right hand side only. Okay, and it keeps us in the area that we're here. Okay, so there are 10 different options we have on the left in the gray area, navigation area here. We have instructions, sites by topic, authorities. Sites by topic are basically legal quotations from various authorities on a specific subject, whereas authorities are general references from various legal sources. Evidence is legal evidence illustrating specific things, you know, from various perspectives and various organizations, jurisdiction and authority, IRS, Treasury organizations and duties, discovery, and so on. Legal research or legal reference is basically all of the reference tools that we have on the site for looking up various things by subject matter, or legal research sources generally, or the precedents of laws, and so on. That's a very useful area that we also use all the time. Then there's federal responses, which in this case is responses to various federal tax collection notices. And there's a whole list on the right that opens up when you select that area. And then there is state responses, which is the same thing. Now the information that's on the right hand side for these response letters comes from the SEDM site. We are not responsible for that. Please do not contact us with questions about that. Anyway, then we have history, which is history of all the various agencies and organizations and the corruption that was introduced into each one, and then testimonials from various users. So that's how the main navigation we do is in the gray area. And then these other items in the top, in the pink area, this one here will take us back to the home for the Family Guardian website. See, it takes us back. The next one takes us to the home of this particular page, Sovereignty Home. So, or actually the Sovereignty and Freedom page, home. And then the next one is the tax home, taxation, on the Family Guardian website. And then this home is the home for the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions page only. So this home resets the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions page. Then search is a method to search the whole website for various legal subjects. So you can use a Google search here, and it defaults to this website only, so it doesn't search other websites. It only searches this website for what you're looking for, and it uses the web crawler data to do the searching. And furthermore, if that searching isn't adequate, then you can also do click on the subject index, and it'll pop up a new tab with basically a subject index of everything on the website. And we've put numbers next to each subject so you can refer to them if you're collaborating with other people and using this page. You can say go to section 43 on frivolous, so they can find it and just simply click on it, and it takes you right down to the area on that page. So that's a very useful area. And sometimes we just leave the subject index page open as a separate tab, and we go back to our main tab again. So we can always hit it anytime we want. But let's close it. We also have, so all of these are search tools that are useful in addition to the Google. So we have legal research sources, which is another window that has a hierarchy of various resources by their authority and importance. So God's law is first, and then state law, then federal law, and all of this is sequenced in the order that the entities were created. So God came first, and then He created man and woman, and man and woman created states, and states created the federal government, and so on. So this is the hierarchy of sovereignty, and you can see that whole hierarchy represented at the bottom of this page down here. And it's broken up by private and public, and by church versus state, left, right, and top, bottom. So this is a very useful page that we also refer to often, that we can access off of the search page here by clicking here to open the search page. And then we also have state legal research sources, so we have all 50 states on the left, and then we have the various law sources for each jurisdiction or venue. So we also have state income taxes, which is references for all 50 states on the left, and then information about that state's tax structure. And then finally we have state vehicle codes, which is organized just like the state income tax resources. All the states are on the left, and then all the information is across the top in columns, so you can find it. So there's a lot of very powerful stuff you can access directly off the search page. I'll close it all. We also use this page quite often. So now you've used, and then we have help, of course, and help calls up help on how to use this website. So it's and on this particular page is also this tutorial, which is right here in section 20. So that's how we use the main navigation at the top, and then the navigation in the pink area, and then the gray area is navigation to the various 10 sections within this particular area. So this is within the site in the pink area, and this is within this particular area, which is sovereignty forms and instructions, the gray stuff, and then below is the sections that you have selected. Let me give an example of how to use the sites by topic in a way that we would normally use it. So we click on sites by topic on the left, and so we scroll down here, and now we have all the various topics that we could choose. So let's say we wanted to look up sites, legal citations or authorities on the subject of consent. So we click on this, and then on the right hand side it populates with all the authorities on the subject of consent, both off-site and on-site. And we like to emphasize, for instance here, that it says off-site. So if whatever you see anything that says off-site, that means we are not responsible for it. Please do not contact us with questions about it, because we can't and we won't answer it. So you need to pay close attention to where the authority came from first, because we don't want to be a custodian over other people's work. So let's hit the back button, and that'll take us back to the help that we had selected on the top. Now there are lots of different subjects here, and every one of these are very useful and helpful, and most of these are words, what we call words of art. These are carefully crafted deceptions by the legal profession to make you believe things that aren't actually true, by basically stealing ordinary English words and making them into something that looks like it's legitimate but isn't, in the case of most people. Now the other thing you may have noticed is that as we've navigated to various areas on the left and things changed on the right, the top title up here, the title frame, did not change. Let's try that. So it didn't change. It remained Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Online. Now the other thing you probably also noticed at the top is that the address bar never changes either. Okay, so if we keep clicking on things, there's tons and tons of stuff in the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Online, and the hyperlink at the top has absolutely nothing to do with what it is that you're viewing within that specific area. I mean, it may take you to state responses in the top, but that's about all it's going to do. It's not going to tell, like for instance, if you found something really useful, like ad valorem, and you clicked on that, then basically everything you could view in this whole area would use this URL, and if you took that URL and you copied it and you pasted it into an email or a chat, and you tried to send it to somebody so they could look at the same thing you think you're looking at, they would not go to the place you're at. That's very important. And that's because each one of these frame windows has a different URL of its own, and none of those URLs are visible in the main URL bar up here, the address bar. Now, if you want to find out what the address bar is for the thing you're looking at, you have to do some little tricks. And most people aren't aware of this because they're not web designers. So let me give you a little, a very useful little tool you can use to find the URLs if you want to direct people directly to, let's say, this screen over here on the right, in the right frame window. So right now we're looking at ad valorem tax, and we know that this address up here is not the address of that page. And if we mailed it, it wouldn't work, and we confuse whoever it was that we sent the URL to. But we know that it says ad valorem tax. We know that we navigated to it on the left over here by clicking on this. Okay, so the way that we can extract the address is one of two ways. We can right click on this, and then we can say copy the shortcut to find the absolute URL. Okay, now the next thing we would have to do to show you what's in the clipboard is we just opened up the clipboard, and actually we opened up the notepad, and we're going to move it onto the screen here, and we're going to hit Control V to paste, which is what we would end up doing if we were pasting into a chat window. And look at that. We can see that that's the actual address of this particular page up here, ad valorem. Okay, so that is the link we'd send to somebody if we want them to look at this specific page. We would not send this link up here in the address bar. It's very important. So that's the first way. Let's close this. That's the first way we can look at that address. The other way we can do it is we can right click on it like we did before, but instead of saying copy shortcut to put it in the clipboard, the address in the clipboard, we can say open in new tab. And once we do that, we have that particular link that was on the right in the right window. Now it's maximized and it's taken over the whole screen, and we can see the real address of that item. And that is the address we would send to somebody if we wanted to point them directly to this page. It's very important to understand those two techniques for getting the correct address, because we get complaints from people occasionally because they'll say, oh, well, you know, because they'll try to point to something that they may think is an error, or they may want to do comments on it from the forums, or they may want to send a copy of it to a friend or whatever, and they'll copy whatever address randomly appears in the top here that's not the address of what they're looking at, and then they'll say, well, I don't know what happened to it. And the reason that they're having that problem is they don't understand how this whole, frame window works, how this whole system works. And once again, there are 3 windows here, and each one of them has its own separate address, and the address on the top has nothing to do with the addresses of any one of these 3 windows. So just keep that in mind. So the only way you can find the address is to right-click on items and open them in a new window. Open a new window here, open a new tab, or copying the shortcut. That's the only way you're going to find out the absolute address of that item. The other thing we want you to notice here is that whenever we change the areas on this side over here, notice that the address up here did not change. First of all, it never changes. So it doesn't affect, oh, that one changed. Okay, notice that one changed. Okay, so it looks like federal response and state response changed the address on the top. But none of these other ones, other than those 2, changed the address on the top. So that's important. Now the other thing we notice is that, whatever it is that we have selected is always going to have a down arrow, and the name will change from having a view in front of it to having the view removed, and then the text will go red. So notice that when we move off this item, it goes back to view sites by topic. See? It went back to view sites by topic. It went back to a right arrow, meaning you have to click on this, and whenever you click on it, it turns red, the view disappears, and then the down arrow shows up to tell you that's all the goodies are down there for that item that you just selected. This sort of an interface allows us to simplify how to drill down and find things without a lot of page changes, and it provides a really good framework to locate things quickly. And but it's unfamiliar to a lot of people because you don't see frames used typically on most websites, and they certainly aren't used on most commercial websites, for instance. So this is a a somewhat unique approach to organizing information, but it's very powerful because this left area kind of acts as your navigation and your library index card, and then the right is where you view the data that you've selected on the left. So it's a pretty powerful tool. This is kind of a menu on the left, and over here is where you view the items. So it's kind of the a rotated version of most applications where the menu bar is on the top. So all we did was rotate it and put the menu bar on the left, and then the actual document that you're working on is in the same place on an app here that it would be on an application window. So you just have to remember how to use this red area to zero out because like right now we're on authorities, but it says state. Basically the right window still has the old state response that we picked earlier. So we have to reset this screen now. So we always click on this home again to reset it. There we go. So now we're back, reset it on the right, but we still selected the authorities. And so if we want to go back to what we started with when we opened the screen, then we click on forms instead. So this is where we started. Now we also wanted to point out that everything that's displayed on this particular screen is also condensed, for the most part, most of it is condensed into a single printed document called the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Manual. Now that manual is not available directly through the Family Guardian website. It's offered on the sister website, the SEDM sister website, and there's a link to it right here. So Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Manual. If you wanted an electronic, downloadable, condensed PDF version of everything that you have here, a lot of it anyway, then you can obtain all of that as a single download through the bookstore on SEDM. And we would simply either click on this item here. It's off-site. There it is. So it's showing us the actual book, Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Manual, Form 10.005. This is offered by the SEDM site, which, as we continually say, we are not responsible for, so you need to contact them, and any problems or questions or issues you have with their manual, you need to contact them and not us. But they did kindly assemble everything that's here, most of it, into a single condensed manual, which is 1,037 pages and 3 chapters. And you can get it by clicking on this link here. And here is an outline below of the organization of all the sections in the book. There are a lot of sections, as you can see. Chapter 3 is forms, which is what you have here, forms. Chapter 2 is the process, which is over here, instructions, right here, same thing. Section 2 in the book is instructions on the left. Okay, and then chapter 1 is like an introduction, which doesn't appear anywhere in here. So at least the first 2 items on the left here, forms and instructions, are available in that book for a suggested donation amount of whatever they decide it is. We don't know what it is. So let's go back to this home again and reset the right-hand side. Likewise, the federal responses and the state responses are also maintained by them and not us. So if you have questions about federal response letters, notice it goes to SEDM and not us. So if you have questions or issues with, in this case, federal responses, please direct your questions to them and not us. And likewise with state responses, because this over here is right off their site. How do we know that? Well, we can't tell that it's on their site other than by the title up here, SEDM, and also by the fact that if we hover over this particular item down on the bottom in the status bar, if we hover over this item, we can see that it goes to let's see, I guess not. Yeah, it doesn't really show, but you can tell by the topic up here that it's them. Okay, you can also tell by the footer, which it says Copyright Sovereignty Education Defense Ministry. So that's their page. So please don't contact us with information about federal responses, state responses, or the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Manual. But everything else that you see on the left here in the navigation, the gray area, you can contact us about. Now, if you find issues or errors with the information on the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online, then you can basically go to the Family Guardian Forums, which is right here. Then you click on Forums, and then you can scroll right down here, and there's an area for errata right there. Forum 8.3, you click on that, and then you can post your comments or problems. That, I'm not logged in to the forum, so I can't do it. You'd have to sign in first. But after you sign in, you can post your errata in the forums. You have to be a member of the forums in order to post errata or errors that about our website. But membership in the forums is absolutely free, and all you have to do in the upper right corner here is click on Create an Account. And we prefer that you use that and no other method to document errors on our website. We really do appreciate all the feedback you give us, and we listen to it carefully, and we look at it carefully, and we research it thoroughly to make sure that everything on our website is absolutely accurate and verifiable independently through third-party sources. Because we don't want you to believe anything we say. We want you to read the law for yourself and believe what you read and follow it. That's really one of the main goals of this website. But we depend on our members and our participants who use our materials to exercise their due diligence and to look up the references that we provide and to immediately provide feedback in the errata section in the Family Guardian forums when they find the errors. And we prefer that you, if you're reading, if all the errors are going to be in a single document, that you collect them all together and only submit one error report after you read the whole document, rather than zillions of separate error reports. So you ought to keep a little notepad next to your, on your desk, and a pencil, and whenever you see something, you might want to write it down. And then when you're all done compiling the list, because you read the whole document through, then submit one errata report with as many problems as you could find on that single document, and only one report. And that'll save us a lot of time, because every time that we are confronted with an error, we have to basically edit the document, recompile it, make it into a PDF, post it, and that's a lot of work. And we prefer to minimize the amount of work we have to do the updates. So thank you for your cooperation on that subject. So let's go down some of these other areas in the gray navigation menu. Authorities. So the arrow goes down, so now we're on authorities. And so under authorities we have the subject index that we also saw on the search page earlier. We have some movies, and we have key authorities on various subjects. We can scroll down, up and down on the left window, and all these windows scroll independently of each other. So we can scroll the right, we can scroll the left, independently of each other. So we have authorities on citizenship, federal law, Supreme Court, federal circuits, that's the appellate courts, and so on. And we also have evidence of mainly of corruption from various different government sources. So from the congressional research congressional perspective is one of the sources, and then jurisdiction and authority, IRS Treasury organization and duties, and so on. Legal reference, which we showed you earlier, which is basically your subject index, your legal research sources, your precedents of laws and regulations, legal abbreviations. You even have law dictionaries down here, copies of old law dictionaries, the whole old Black's Law Dictionary, 1910, which is pretty hard to find actually, and you can download the whole thing. Now, and it says the size here, 163 megabytes. So if it's a large document, typically we'll put the size here, and if it's really large, we very forcefully request that you save the item locally and view it on your local hard drive rather than clicking on it and trying to download it every time you want to read it, because it just really eats up tons and tons of bandwidth and interferes with the enjoyment of the website by other users. So, for instance, on Black's Law Dictionary, if you wanted to download this large item yourself to your local hard drive, you would right-click on this and you would say Save Target As, and then you would select a directory and you would download it. And from then on, you would remember that it's on your local hard drive, so you wouldn't click on it here anymore. That's the way you can save yourself a lot of time trying to open documents, and save us a lot of headache, and and our users a lot of headache by congesting the site with traffic that isn't necessary. So anyway, we have a lot of various legal references here: God's law, general reference, various dictionaries, legal authorities like the Law of Nations and the Spirit of Laws, which were used to write the U.S. Constitution, are here, and those are all local because they're not copyrighted. They're out of the copyright window. There's summaries of U.S. laws, litigation tools on the SEDM website, which is off-site, and then third-party sources like Find Law, Federal Criminal Practice from James Publishing, and so on. Case research. You can do case research on the Supreme Court and various subscription services like Westlaw, LexisNexis. Now, because this indicates subscription service, then you have to have an account with them, and you have to pay for the account in order to use it. We don't offer free subscriptions or subscriptions at all. We just give you a link to the items so that you know where to go to get a subscription. And then we have various government publications, so on, private publications. And all of this is basically just evidence, is basically just legal references that are really useful doing case research when you're litigating, especially. We use this area all the time, and it's pointed to, all the items in here are pointed to by many different sources, including SEDM itself. For instance, if we went to SEDM, here's an example of how they use it. Then we can see a lot of the same things. Off-site legal research links. Most of these items here are on right in this tab under legal reference. So most of these items come right off of our website, and they're off-site links, meaning they're recognizing that they didn't create this, but that it's useful, and they're pointing to it, and they're doing it in a summary fashion. Now, likewise, another interesting thing here is that the area we just left, the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions area here online, is also shown on their menu. You can see it's right there, Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online. And what they do is they provide a way to link directly to the various gray areas right over here, just the way we do. So if you wanted to go to, sites by topic like we did earlier, then you could click on this, and it opens a new window and takes you right to sites by topic. See right there? Likewise, if you wanted to open up authorities that we just looked at, there it is. It takes directly to authorities in a new window. So they link to it too. They just make it kind of a neat little centralized thing to find just about anything you could ever want in this one small little menu here. And then likewise, our different topic areas on the opening page of Family Guardian are reflected in their off-site reference links. So for instance, that would be all of these things here on the opening page of Family Guardian: spirituality, activism, sovereignty and freedom. All of those are shown right down here in this bottom menu right there. Same thing. Activism is the same thing as the one that's on our site right there, activism, and so on. So these are like the main topic index areas right there. And they're all shown right down here. So there's a lot of integration between the two sites, so they work well together. Anyway, let's close that. So we already showed you federal response letters. That's on Family Guardian. I'm sorry, that's on SEDM, and we told you not to contact us about it, and we're not even going to talk about what's in there. But if you do have to respond to a collection notice of any kind, and you are a compliant member, then you're invited to use this sort of information. And by compliant member, I mean compliant with SEDM guidance, not our guidance. We're not responsible for what they do in any way. So then we have history of various scandals, and they're in date sequence here, and they're organized by organization within the government, and then testimonials of users. So website testimonials, Great Iris Hoax testimonials, movie testimonials, master file decoder program, and so on. So that's pretty much everything we can show you about the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions online. Let's click on this home to reset, and let's click on View Forms to go back to where we started. Now if we want to go back to the home page of the website itself, Family Guardian, we can click here. And that'll take us right to the opening page of Family Guardian. And then the Sovereignty and Freedom home is right here. So, and we put that on the top because it's very closely related with the purpose of this forum, which is Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Online. So that's the high-level menu up there. So we basically showed you everything we can. Let's go back to the opening page of the website. This concludes our presentation on how to use the Sovereignty Forms and Instructions Online. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you have learned enough to make your experiences using the area enjoyable and productive. Thanks, and God bless you.